welcome to the Olympic Hockey Show brought by Purple Rain Podcast. It is that time to do our report cards for all 10 nations that competed in La Cortina. And it's something we do on the main show for all the PHL teams. We do it every year. We basically just, look back at the performance of the past year and we just, give an honest critique on it. We've been doing this in reverse order of the final ranking. So the last episode we did, the team came 5th. So that means we must now turn our attention to that poor team who ends up being in the position that nobody ever wants to be in Olympic Games, whether it's a solo or a team event. It's the 4th place finishers. And that was, of course, Sparia. Now it's time for Sweden. And for Sweden, my heart actually breaks for them. Even though I had no preference who won that bronze medal game, and I'll repeat it again when we do the bronze playlist for the next show, I had no preference who won that game, but the way it happened, and it being like those dying seconds of the overtime, oh, it's just so good for them, especially for Sweden. They have been outside of the medals for a very long time now. I'll go through the record in a moment. But in La Cortina, across 7 games, so they're 4 group games, their quarterfinal, semi-final, and then bronze medal appearance, Sweden had a record of 5 regulation wins, no overtime wins, 1 overtime loss, and 1 regulation loss. In terms of goal differential, they had a... Oh, wow, this is impressive here, guys. 21 goals scored, 9 goals conceded. That's a goal differential plus 12. In total, 16 points they accumulated across their time in La Cortina. And Sweden was just so impressive. I mean, going into the tournament, I had a very strong feeling that Sweden were going to be winning Group B outright. I just looked at the rest of Group B and I saw no way could anybody match to Sweden. Not even Germany. Because remember, I had zero confidence about Germany going into February. Okay, I had zero confidence in them, okay? So I looked at that and thought, that is Sweden's for the taking. They can go into the knockouts so full of confidence, because everyone's going to see them as like a bit of an underdog, had potential like maybe Czechia or Finland in the quarters, then you had to get one of the top dogs in the semis, such as Canada or USA. So I think for Sweden to be able to win their group outright, it's just so impressive. It's amazing. It just gave them that confidence that they needed. Because I feel like Sweden, in terms of the international for the last few years, they haven't been where they should be, okay? I mean, Sweden has got the biggest hockey league in Europe for women in the SDHL. And of course, this past season, the SDHL followed the PHL's route and broadcasted games on YouTube, which we actually did try. At the beginning of this year, we did try to do a few, but in the end, it just, for me, it wasn't really working. It wasn't really ideal. And then we thought, right, well, we gave it a go. Let's just wait. Let's just go. Let's just get back to what we normally do. So we gave it a go. We gave it a go. Of course, if you do want to check out some SDHL hockey next year, do try it. Try at least 1 or 2 games like we did, and then just make a decision after that. Okay, but do give it a good go. You want to see some European women's hockey. Yeah, so they've got one of the biggest leagues there in Europe for women. Why is it then not translating to medals? Because Sweden hasn't really done that well in the World Championships, even the last 2 years either. Whereas Finland obviously has managed to make a breakthrough and getting themselves to be a medal contender. Sweden's not. And I kind of feel Sweden should be, if you get what I mean. We've been saying that Sparia and Swami are the 2 Scandinavian nations you need to be watching out for in next few years, alongside Czechia. Okay, so it just kind of feels like Sweden should be up there with the best of the best, but they haven't been there. And I think that's largely due to how their program is being funded. So I really hope that the legacy of La Cortina is enough for those people in high places who've got control of the finances, got control of the wallets. I hope it makes them think, yeah, we should be funding this program more, because we got so close to having a medal put round our necks. So I'm really hoping that the legacy of La Cortina is really going to help the program going forward and just take that much needed next step in terms of balancing. So if we, and also for Sweden, if they had got that medal in La Cortina, that would have marked 20 years since their last medal. Because if we look at how Sweden's done in prior Olympics, guys, and Sweden's one of those few nations that have been every single game going all the way back to 1998. Okay. So we look at that now. Okay. So obviously 2002 and 2006 they won medals there. So 2002 was that bronze medal. And then 2006 was that silver. And then of course they were in the bronze medal game again in 2010 and 2014, but lost both of those. And of course in 2014, that was the last that Switzerland won a medal. It was that thrilling comeback victory for Switzerland in Sochi all those years ago. But since then, they've been on a bit of a downhill. So in Pyeongchang, they came 7th, and in Beijing, they came 8th. In fact, Beijing was their worst performance ever. Because in 1998, they came 5th. So Beijing was Sweden's worst performance. So to go from having one of your worst performances in the last Olympic cycle to 4 years later, you were 1 goal away from a medal. That just shows how much improvement we've seen from Sparia, a nation that should be up there with the best in terms of the Europeans, and they should be really, rattling the big dogs in terms of coming for that medal. But it hasn't worked out that way for Sweden. But I'm also going to, talk about their coach as well, which I'm going to do right now. So for Ulf Lundberg, we all knew that this was his big swan song. We knew that Erika Holst, who is now in charge of the program, we knew she was coming in, and we knew she was going to take over for La Cortina. So, but for La Cortina, this is Ulf's big swan song. He had been with the team since 2020, so he's coached them through 2 Olympic cycles. And he is now, just very recently, just been announced as one of the assistant coaches for Piotr Zaze. So I don't think Troy Ryan couldn't have picked a better assistant if he tried. Maybe probably could have been the head coach if Troy Ryan didn't want to take on, a double duty. But we'll see how it goes there. So I think that all it's brilliant. Because I think we did wonder what was going to be next for him. This kind of felt like a coach who, really shouldn't really be on the sidelines for too long. Surely he should be able to find another position elsewhere. And thankfully he has. And in terms of coaching, he is actually still quite relatively young. He's in his mid-40s. He's 46. So he would be 50 going into the next Olympic cycle. So he's 46. Now I know a lot of you think 46. That sounds very old. Don't go there, okay? Because I'm mentally approaching 50 myself in a few months' time. But in terms of coaching, that is still quite relatively young, especially if you look at some of the coaches in the AHL these days. They are right to their 60s, 70s, more like that. But no, so if Troy Ryan doesn't work out being in 2 roles in Zaze at the same time, then maybe Ulf could potentially take that step up and be the head coach in 2027-28. We'll see how it goes from there. Yeah, and I actually feel that he kind of redeemed himself from Beijing. Because you think an 8th place finish, not really good. The buck has to stop at the top. His head will need to roll, and yet the program stood by him. They kept him on until this Olympic cycle which has been gone. And the fact that he managed to turn things around very quickly, especially you look at their world record as well since Beijing. In fact, since I've got it here, let's do that. Let's do that, shall we? Since I've got it here with me. Okay. So yeah, so not great. 2022, 7th. 2023, 6th. 2024, which is my first World Championship, 7th. And then last year, 6th, when they lost that 5th place match against Switzerland. So really, the writing was on the wall. Don't put Switzerland and Sweden together, because it will just end in tears for Sweden. And in fact, since I've been involved with the women's game in 2010, Sweden's never finished higher than 5th in the World Championships. So, Ooh. And in fact, Jesus Christ, they got Reggae 2019! Oh my god, they got Reggae in 2019! Oh my god! Oh my god, in 2019 they got Reggae to Division 1A. Oh my fucking god. Wow. Wow. So really, sweetie, it's not working, is it? And that's probably largely due to the fact that the funding's not been there. So please, whoever funds this program, please give them the funding they deserve, because I think Local T has shown that they can be a successful team when they've got the right backing behind them. Okay, and it's also going to be very exciting because obviously me and Lady were really excited for Erica Hulse coming in and to see what she's going to be able to do with the program, because she knows what it takes to win a medal. She was on that medal winning team 2002, 2006, so she knows what it takes to basically been there, got that, bought the t-shirt. She knows it inside out. So I think she's going to be really great behind that bench now for Sweden, and I think she can maybe hopefully take them to the next level. Because it's going to be very hard to Sweden will be having a lot more better in the Worlds now we've got the balance groups. They'll probably still be second fiddle to Canada, but they'll have but they might have a more easier path in the quarters than they have done the last few times. Because I expect Sweden will finish second to Canada in the groups, and that meant they should have a more easier Poland going into the quarterfinals compared to last year when obviously they got Finland, and it just, you know, great match, but if you aspire, net result not so good. But yeah, but because of that goal event, I mean, wow, 21 goals scored. In fact, is that the most after the USA? Let's have a look. Let's have a look here. So they got 20. So they got 21. Wow, that is the third highest goal scored after both the USA and Canada. Well, that's not. In fact, oh, it's only one behind Canada. One goal behind Canada there. Wow. Wow. One behind Canada. It has a goal differential. Wow. 21 for Sweden. 22 for Canada. Wow. So this team, when they were able to get their foot to the medal, they were just pumping with gas. And they just literally just did not look back. They just showed their opponents literally no mercy. They pretty much wiped the floor with everybody in Group B. Okay? Nobody, not even Germany, got close to putting a scratch on Sweden. Which is why I find it very insulting. And I talked about it when I did Czechia. I'm going to bring it up again now. This is why, if you look back at the records, this is why I find it so insulting that a lot of people saw Sweden's win over Czechia in the quarterfinals. They saw that as an upset. They saw it as a shock. And I was like, no. Have you watched any of Group B? Because I did. I watched all Group A, I watched all Group B, and I watched all the knockouts. And I could see in Group B, nobody got close to putting a scratch over Sparia. So why is that a shock? Why is that a shock? Because Czechia, is ranked high in the world rankings? I don't care! I don't care! I don't care if coming into the Olympics, this team is higher than that team in the world rankings. I don't care. We're at the Olympics. Anything goes. Look at poor Finland. Look at poor Finland. That just proves it. Anything goes in the Olympics, okay? So I'm sorry, that was not a shock. It just made my blood boil when you had commentators on the various broadcasters basically say, "Oh, wasn't it a shock Sweden winning over Czechia?" It's like, no. Especially you look back on that quarterfinal matchup. While it was a more tight affair, and I will give Czechia credit here for making that quarterfinal a lot more tighter than it was. But Sweden shut out the Czechs there, guys. I think it was 2-0 at the end of the day. I think it might have been 2-0. Just go tell that for me, guys, and let me know in the comments. It was 2-0. So while Czechia did make it quite close, a very tight contest for Sweden, I kind of felt in that game, Sweden had the more control over Czechia, and I felt Sweden made the most of their chances, unlike Czechia. Czechia really struggled to get those chances on the board, and they just really struggled to find a way to, break the Swedish defense, which a lot of teams in Group B also found. And, I mean, we look at Group B, that game against Japan was just, oh my god. I'm surprised that Sweden didn't think, you know what? let's just destroy them. Let's just annihilate it. Because basically Japan knew, right? Japan knew in that game they had to win to stand any chance of making the quarters. Any chance. They had to win that outright. And yet, with Japan, we saw no fight for them. So basically for Sweden, that was basically just a free pass. A free pass to do what the fuck you like. They could have easily made it like a 9 or 10-0 result we would have seen back in 2010, 2014. They didn't, but could have quite easily there. It's just, yeah, so nobody in Group B got close to getting one over Sparia. So I do not see why the quarterfinal matchup against Czechia was a shock result when Sweden was the better team. Sweden was the better team in that game. Move on. I don't care if Czechia was ranked higher than Sweden in the world rankings. I'm looking at what I've just seen right in front of me, my own two eyes. Sweden, better team. Off you go. Go and face the US in the semi-finals. Off you go. And Czechia, lick your wounds. Okay? And please don't get the commentators to fight your battles for you guys. Come on. But speaking of that semi-final, which by the way was the only game that me bloody saw on the BBC. It was so funny because we already had it set up on TNT on my phone, ready to go. And then literally a few seconds later, the BBC were putting on. I was like, okay, maybe they're going to do it in full. And thankfully, they did do it in full. So the semi-final that we had over the US was the only one that we saw on the BBC. The rest of it was TNT all the damn way. Yeah. Oh, and their commentators were just as bad, by the way. Both commentators on BBC and TNT were both bad. But BBC was more tolerable and less making you bloodborne than TNT was. But that semi, now, obviously, going to that semi-final, obviously, me and Lady, we knew our history, okay? And we also tried to play as well, you know, the Brits were up as well. So we knew our history. We knew how big of a deal this game was going to be. Because 20 years ago, in Torino, so in a nearby town, in Torino, the Swedes shocked the world by knocking out the Yanks in 2006 in the semi-finals. So you can imagine when the matchup was there, literally, me and they were like, because we knew because we knew there was a chance. Even though the USA were playing really, really well, we knew there was a small chance that maybe, just maybe, history might repeat itself and Sweden does it again. But, alas, that would not be the case. And I felt that the USA, you know, really showed dominance again. It was a 5-0 victory over Sweden. You know, and that's for Sweden was where I can't look for that. Now, for Sweden, it was always going to be a trouble for them. It was always going to be a tricky task for them in the semi-finals, regardless of whether they played us or Canada. Maybe, again, like how I felt, would it be interesting what would happen if we got journey quarters? With Sweden, it'd be interesting what would happen if we got Canada in the semis. And we'll find that out in November, because obviously in Group B, Canada and Sweden will go head to head. Okay? So, I do wonder what would have happened if Sweden got Canada. Because we had Switzerland say that they thought Canada were beatable. So, would Sweden manage to do it? I don't know. And would we have had a US-Sweden gold medal game in the finals? I don't know. We'll never know. But I just felt with Sweden, it kind of felt like their luck had run out, and we just really brought it to them. They just really couldn't find a response to our offense, because you had the two best offenses in the tournament go head-to-head for the right to play in the gold medal where they rightly would have deserved it. Because USA had been unbeaten in Group A, Sweden had been unbeaten in Group B. Both these sides really, if the Olympics were more balanced, these two sides rightfully would have met head-to-head in the gold medal match, not fighting to go to the gold medal match. I just feel that USA and Sweden, what an epic gold medal game that would have been, because these two were the dominant teams in their respective groups, and I felt it would only been right if they had gone to the finals against one another. That would have been just so impressive to watch, and that would have been one for the ages. And then we would have had to have people going on about, what happened to Canada? Anyway, but so it's tough for Sweden, and in that Bosman game they played absolutely well. Neither side relented in that Bosman match. Both Switzerland and Sweden brought their A game to that Bosman match. It was absolutely thrilling. And like I said, I didn't mind who won that game because it was going to be a great story for whoever won. You know, Switzerland hadn't won a medal in 12 years. Sweden hadn't won one in 20. You know, so if whoever was going to win that bronze medal game, it was going to be one for the ages, one for the history books, and I would have just felt so happy for either one of them. So for Sweden, it's so heartbreaking because they had the game there, and unfortunately, it did go to overtime. And it was like a minute to go. In case you're wondering, in the bronze medal game, if it had stayed deadlock after overtime, we would have had to go on to the dreaded shootout. Okay. Whereas the gold medal match, it would just be basically like the World Cup. You know, we play on and on and on until someone scores or someone dies. Sorry, that was a bit too early, but that's always how I picture playoff hockey with the overtime. It's like you're gonna turn carry on until someone scores or until someone drops dead. Okay, so yeah, come on, guys, really, they're humans at the end of the day. Okay, these athletes, they are only human at the end of the day. Come on. Anyway, but just in case you're wondering, so Sweden might have been more heartbreak than it would have been. Anyway, could have been worse. But I think for Sweden, you should look back on these games and think, how proud should you be of that? You know, you were so close to winning your first medal in more than 20 years. And of course, for Sweden, the last time they were in a medals match was back in 2014, was back in Sochi when we had that incredible comeback for Switzerland. Okay? So for Sweden, like for Switzerland, but for Sweden, it's also been a very long time since they've had a chance to win a medal. Okay? Although I think Switzerland was in the bronze medal match the previous time, but obviously it just adds on more years to their wait for another medal. Whereas for Sweden, that wait goes on. But I think for Sweden, they can look back at Argentina and take it in their stride and think, okay, we've made so many improvements this time around. Who knows, maybe in 4 years' time in the French Alps, maybe that could be our moment to get the bronze. Maybe we'll then get the bronze there again. And by that point, you think of Sweden, come on, guys, what's stopping you? What really is stopping you from getting over the line? Because you really should be in the medal conversation with Finland, with Switzerland, with Czechia. It should be those 5 teams. Do you think, right, 3 of them, you're going to get the medals? Okay? So, what does Sweden need to do to get over the line? What do they need to do? Because I just feel that this is a nation that, you know, should be in that competition of medals, like with Switzerland, like with Finland, like with Czechia, but it just isn't working. And I think with Sweden, we need to see more improvements in the World Championships to give us confidence this team can potentially be a medal contender going forward. So we just need to see that more often, because we just haven't seen it so far. We're seeing it with Finland, we're seeing it with Czechia, which is kind of what gave me the overconfidence Czechia could win a medal in Milan Cortina. But with Sweden, we just haven't seen it, not in my time. Okay? Not in my time. So, yeah, so it'd be interesting to see what can happen for Sweden in the future. And if they can just take it that next step. Obviously, they've now had the change of the guard. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously, very excited what Erik's going to do for this organisation going forward. Can she get this team over the line and into the medal conversation? We will find out. Very, very, very soon. But Sweden should absolutely be so proud of what you did in Milan Cortina because you got so close. Okay, I first go to this report card for Team Sweden. They should be so proud of themselves. They got so close. First time since 2014. They were in the medal game. Massive improvement, of course, where they were 4 years ago in Beijing. It's just, we still need to see a few bit of fine-tuning and they'll get there. Come on, funding. It's all about the funding, guys. How you fund these programs matters a lot. So come on, just give Sweden the funding they need and take this team to that next level. Alright, thank you for joining me as always. Next time, ciao for now.